I'd add my personal testimonial to the salad bar. It is truly best in the globe, I would argue. Okay, let's talk Midtown. Our goal is for you to leave here with a solid understanding of where we are in terms of progress and our imperatives moving forward. And I will tell you, in general, as a spoiler alert, Midtown is doing very well. I could spend the next 30 minutes up here talking about how Midtown is winning and sit down. But I don't think that's what our job is. That's not what our organization exists for. And I think if you were satisfied with the status quo exactly as it is, you wouldn't be here this evening. So we're going to do what we do, which is the no spin zone. Facts matter, and we're here to push, and we're here to challenge ourselves. So that's our theme. I'll just say, by any measure, urban districts today have faced a unique set of challenges. And it's everything from, the past 3 years, which many argue is an acceleration of existing trends. But return to office being slower than many of us would want it, a record office vacancy, potential, office valuations in terms of building valuations potentially going down, impacting city tax revenue, impacting services, impacting who wants to be in urban districts, et cetera. So if you roll all that up and you read the news, as we do on a daily basis, you're seeing a lot of this so-called existential dread of an urban doom loop. These are examples: dead, dying, or on life support. This is just from 2 weeks ago. More urban doom loopism from a few days ago. And here's one, ran in the Washington Post not long ago, and you can see what's on the front cover there. That's Atlanta. With the tagline, "The Commercial Real Estate Apocalypse." So this is definitely an interesting and a pivotal time to be in any urban district or any downtown. Unfortunately, what we found is a lot of times these stories are exaggerating data. They're extrapolating where it doesn't really make sense. Maybe it's a testament to the days that we're living in here. I was channel flipping in a hotel room last week, and I tuned into this movie on the apocalypse. It turned out I was just watching the news. So, we know that news reports are often biased towards exaggeration, and because frankly, that's what sells, and that's it helps to be associated with exciting news. So that's the world we live in. But facts and analysis are often boring, at least for the media. But we're going to talk a lot about facts. Just one more thing, just to kind of level set. You hear also a lot about the panacea of taking all these office buildings and converting them to housing, as if that's going to solve everything. And it's easy to understand motivations. There's a lot of urban districts that are predominantly monocultures of office buildings. Some of those cities are much older, so they got like pre-World War II building stock where office tenants don't really want to be. Makes perfect sense. You get smaller footprints, smaller office floor plates. There are conversions and there will be conversions to residential. You won't see any in Midtown. It's just, first of all, we don't need to. Second of all, even if you really had to, these large office floor plates aren't really conducive to a residential conversion. So, and also jobs are drivers of our economy, and that's what we want to see. So with that context, a few of us just got back from a thing called the International Downtown Association, which is a trade association of place managers. Just got back on Sunday from Chicago. It's about 1,500 people everywhere from Dallas to Denver to Austin to Boston talking about urban issues. And there were some things that struck me as I listened to people and I talked to some of my peers around the country. basically none of those urban districts do public improvement district or public improvement projects. They just don't build stuff. They're there for in some cases they got safety programs. A lot of times they're ambassadors and they're doing storefront retail type stuff. So it's almost unheard of to do capital projects. Most of those districts would absolutely kill for the level of investment that we've seen in Midtown over the last 20 years, over the last 10 years, even currently. We've got over 1 million square feet of office under construction right now in 1 square mile of Midtown, and 5,000 residential units. And that's another key differentiator. There's a lot of urban districts that are begging for residents right now. As you'll see, our residential population has almost quintupled since 2000 in Midtown, and a lot more on the way. And that's important. That's one of the things that got us through these last 3 years of a pandemic, where it didn't look like there was a ghost town with tumbleweeds going by, kept the street level retail going, which we'll talk about a little bit. But this mix of uses, having residents next to offices next to hospitality and visitors and students, is a huge superpower for Midtown, and is one of the things that's allowed us to withstand the challenges we've seen so well. And lastly, just extremely low crime. What you'll hear today is that crime is the lowest it's been in at least 15 years. We're lower than last year by heaps and bounds, 31% lower in violent crime than last year, and last year was the safest in 14 years. So almost no violent crime. We're going to talk more about crime and unpack that, but to me it was just quite a differentiator. And then a lot of our team was out early this morning at 5 a.m. doing a point in time count, doing a homeless count for the people that literally live in Midtown. And the number was 59, compared to 60 last year. So we aren't really seeing an uptick on that, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. I mean, compared to Denver, 1,000, compared to downtown Atlanta, compared to Austin, Texas, compared to name the city, extremely low percentages of people who are unhoused. So let's get into some of the facts here. We're doing good. Thank you very much. But let's get into the facts. So who's heard of Placer AI? There's one thing all of us have in common is something we all got in our pocket or our purse right now, which are mobile phones. So we had Placer do a diagram to really show us how their application worked. So we'll make that available if anybody needs to go through it. But these have turned out to be really incredible tools for us in terms of objective data, in terms of who's here and when they're here. So if you take Placer data, I mean, this is just an example of the granularity here. I think that is every day of, daily Midtown, there's workers in Midtown every day from August of 2022 to August of 2023. So you get an idea, you see the dip around the holidays, but you get an idea of how this works in terms of the granularity. So let's talk a little bit about what this is, a little less confusingly than the chart that's in front of you now. The humans of Midtown. These are people. Only down 14% from 2019. These are people who are in Atlanta on an average day. The chart goes from 2017 to year-to-date 2023, but this is an average day. The numbers will move a little bit as we get to the end of the year, but not much. That's informative for us. And basically, if you got a cell phone in your pocket, it's counting you, and we draw basically a boundary around the Midtown district, and so it's really quite accurate. If you want to see how these humans break down, we put it in a pie chart for you. So if you assume that a visitor is somebody that spends 45 minutes within those boundaries that we drew within the Midtown Urban District, that's how it works out on an average day. So you got a lot of visitors, and residents and workers. We use 45 minutes on visitors. Most everybody else in the business, I learned last week, uses 7 minutes, which to me seems extremely low. Seems like you could be driving through Midtown and take longer than 7 minutes on occasion, in which case you're probably not visiting or buying anything or contributing to our economy, so we used 45. I think if we take it down to 30 minutes, that 120 jumps to like 170,000, so it's really finely tuned. So I don't know what the right number is, but we used 45 for this. So that's average day, and then not surprisingly, it changes weekdays to weekends. So about a 25% drop in the total number of people in Midtown on the weekends, and obviously the visitor piece ends up on a greater piece of the pie here. So let's look at workers for a minute. This is something that's on everybody's mind because this is really what's driving a lot of these headlines and a lot of the hand-wringing that's going on in cities across the United States. Here's where we are on workers. These are average daily Monday through Friday workers in Midtown, and there's some data that underlies this in terms of how it tells that you're a worker, and we won't get into the details of it, but as you can see, 27.5% down from where we were pre-pandemic in 2019, and climbing. A lot better than 2021. It's interesting that 2021 was actually lower than 2020, but we're steadily on the ascent here, which is also encouraging. I would hasten to note that this is all workers in Midtown. This is not just office workers. Midtown is predominantly office workers. It's a super majority of office workers, but there are other people that work here too. There's hospitality workers, there's restaurant and retail workers. So don't think of this as a return to office statistic. We will, and we didn't quite have an opportunity to do it before tonight, but what we're going to do is we're going to draw polygons, around every office building in Midtown, and then run these numbers again in terms of who's here, who was here in 2019. I mean, it is really amazing that Placer keeps this data back to 2017. You can go back, pick a day in 2017, it'll tell you who was here based on cell phones. So, I mean, super data is just astounding to me. But this is pretty darn encouraging. Stay tuned for our official return to office statistic. But let's unpack workers a little bit more. Again, not surprisingly, attendance drops off on Mondays and Fridays pretty precipitously. But I kind of remember attendance dropping off on Mondays and Fridays before we had this thing called a pandemic. So, thanks to Placer, it sounds like I'm like these shameless plugs for Placer. They did just raise like $175 million in like a Series C offering, but anyway, here's Placer. So there's 2019 in blue at the top, total number and how it dropped off, and then there's 2023 in the orange at the bottom of the slide you just saw. So we've gone from an average 10% drop off on Mondays and Fridays to a much deeper 24% drop off. Where is it going to end up? 5 years from now, what's the equilibrium going to be? You tell me. A lot of pundits would make different speculations on that. But nonetheless, this is what it shows. One of the other doomsday scenarios was, with the uncertainty around office and record high office vacancy, that the valuation that is assigned to these office properties by our tax assessors is also going to go down, which then means less tax revenue, which means decrease in services. So we went ahead and mapped what's happened in terms of commercial assessments within the Midtown Improvement District. And as you can see, the good news is we're up 32%. Since 2018, and we had a little dip. Some of those dips are attributable to the tax assessor counting or not counting some properties that have a tax exemption. Some of them are miscodings, but nonetheless, we often see fluctuation, but trajectory matters. And we're seeing an uptick of about 32% since 2019, and so knock on wood, that's gonna hold. So we talk a lot about office. Let's talk a little bit about vacancy. So we decided to benchmark Midtown against some other major submarkets in Atlanta, and that's what this does. This is just Class A office, which is almost all what the product in Midtown is. So there you have, the big blue bar is the total millions of square feet of Class A office each of these districts has within their boundaries. The red number at the top is the percentage vacancy, which is made up by that blue bar. And that vacancy includes both vacancy and sublease vacancy, because subleases, as you might have heard, there's companies that, with fewer people coming to the office, they're realizing they have excess office space and they're now subleasing at record levels. So we rolled that into these numbers. So bottom line, all these districts are between 4 and 7% vacancy of their Class A office. I would say in Midtown, the unique thing is 75% of that vacancy is coming from a handful of buildings. I mean, think of Campanile, think of Tower Square. It's 1.4 million of entirely vacant office right now. So, there's some big ones that are dragging the numbers down. And I think it's also notable that Midtown delivered close to 3 million square feet of new office in 2021. So, we've been on a tear in terms of new office development. Here's another interesting fact, and all these districts aren't really created equal. If you just look at the footprint of Central Perimeter, it's about 3 times the size of Midtown, and North Fulton is about 10 times the size of Midtown. So, the Midtown Improvement District, where we are right now, has got a lot of office in a very small geographic area, and that's really one of its superpowers and one of its strengths. It is in a walkable grid, and it's a place where people want to be. All right, more on office. I mentioned how much office Midtown delivered in the last couple of years. Here's how much is currently under construction. I will tell you that I've talked to a lot of people. Nobody has this kind of office coming out of the ground right now in 2023. No Denver, no LA, no Austin, nobody has this happening that I'm aware of. That is a lot, and you can see how it compares. So that's a quick snapshot of office as of Q2 of 2023. We'll see what the future bodes, but all in all, pretty interesting times. Let's move to residents. This is something that my peers in many cities would absolutely kill for. So here's a build-up slide that shows just the growth of residential units in the Midtown Improvement District since 2000. So that's 5x, which is amazing. And the little dotted line above the last bar is the number of units that are currently proposed. They've gone through the development review process, and they just haven't broken ground yet. So we never really totally count those until they're out of the ground. So here's the headline. A 40% increase in residential units pre-2020 to today. That's momentum. That shows that we've created the kind of urban district where residents want to be, where it provides the lifestyle and the amenities and the grocery stores and the dog parks and the interesting things that they want to have. Not that it's perfect, but that's meteoric residential growth for any urban district. And then if you roll up all the different product types, we'll talk about hospitality in a minute, but a lot of billions of dollars in real estate that's been delivered, just in the last 5 years. And if you count the stuff that's under construction right now and proposed, that takes you to almost $13 billion of investment, which is serious and solid investment for any urban district. As long as we're rounding out our discussion, let's talk a little bit about air travel. Almost back, 89%. And we've extrapolated gray bar at the end is just taking what we've seen so far in 2023 and extrapolating it just so it matches up to the other bars. But I don't know, call it revenge travel or whatever, but travel is bouncing back. International travel is bouncing back. Reggie knows a lot more about Hotel RevPAR, which is revenue per available room. This is information that we've gotten from the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, and you can see Midtown is in blue, the citywide hotels are all in gray, but we're tracking with citywide, and you can see what's happened with hotel revenue per available room for the last couple of years. And if we roll back the clock even further, this is what it looks like since the beginning of 2019. So first thing you might notice is that really tall bar on the left, that's Super Bowl 2019. It really does make a difference in terms of hotel occupancy and revenue, and the room rates get jacked up. And you can see where it fell off a cliff there at the start of the pandemic, and you can see where it's been crawling back. But if you just sort of squint and you look, at 2019 compared to 2023, it's pretty much tracking even, which is a surprise to some people. I think it's a testament to the kind of experience that our hoteliers are providing in Midtown. And that's good. So hotels are filled with visitors. I think here's a factoid. On an average night in Midtown, there's almost 5,000 overnight visitors staying in a hotel room in Midtown. Almost 5,000 per night on average over the course of a year. Let's talk about those visitors for a minute. This is not just out-of-town visitors. It includes out-of-town visitors. But again, this is anybody spending 45 minutes in our district. These could be diners, people coming in for a drink, movie, long walk, dentist, whatever is going to bring them here for 45 minutes. And you can see from the numbers, we're only down 13% from 2019 in terms of visitors. So we're going to continue to run through some of these displacer data and see where we net out. In the next few weeks, I think we'll have some even more granular information, but stay tuned. Transit ridership, worth noting. The faded bars in the background are just what's happened over the last 18 months or so. But you can see, here's where we are in terms of the three major, this is rail transit ridership, not bus transit ridership, but not surprisingly, with fewer people coming to the office, fewer people are taking the MARTA trains, and those are the numbers. That, is a challenge for any transit system that relies on a fare box. And so we're hoping to continue to climb those numbers up. And then lastly, crime. And, headlines lowest in 15 years. If you all don't subscribe to our newsletter or our crime reports, you should do that. We put out detailed reports. They're generally about 4 pages. They're super easy to skim and get takeaways from. But it's facts. And we've gotten to the point where we're looking at every incident, for example, of violent crime, and not just saying, oh, that was a sexual assault or that was an aggravated assault, but we're looking at the circumstances of it. Did it happen in a hotel room? Did it happen in a private residence? Did it happen in a bar? Or did it happen in the public right-of-way in a sidewalk? Did it happen between people who were in a domestic dispute? Did it happen as a part of an altercation where somebody easily could have de-escalated but didn't? And the bottom line is that of all of the violent crimes that have happened in Midtown this entire year, there have been 9 that involve what we call stranger on stranger. These are people that didn't know each other or weren't in a relationship or weren't in an altercation where they could have easily just walked away and de-escalated. So, that should make you feel pretty good. And the lion's share of those are happening well into the dark and early morning hours. So we got a lot to brag about. Our crime report is going to take you through each and every violent crime, each and every property crime, including stolen vehicles, vehicle break-ins, all of which are down a lot this year. And I would say this is all attributable to fantastic partnerships. We got Marcus and Dan back here in the back. Those are your go-tos in terms of anything you've got a public safety question about. So we've got great partnerships with our public and private sector partners. And APD, I would say, has the best partnerships I've ever seen with their county and state and federal law enforcement partners. I've never seen a stronger relationship, and it pays dividends in every way. So I think we're in a good place. Let's see here. So those are the facts. So taking everything you just heard, what do we need to do going forward? What are our imperatives as we go forward? I think it kind of depends on your vantage point. I mean, if you're an office owner, your imperative is to keep the tenants you got. Your imperative is to get new tenants. And what that means anymore is you got to provide amenities. Workers want a different experience than they've had in the past. They want a different deal. But they need something that they can't get if they're working remote. So this is what we've heard about, this flight to quality or flight to experience. That is and it gives a distinct advantage to really good Class A office buildings that are located in a walkable, highly amenitized district, and Midtown is one of those. They don't necessarily have to be new buildings. We're in 999, right next door, a building that was delivered in 1987, and we got a new owner that's doing a lot of improvements because they know that's what they got to do to be able to keep tenants and continue to grow those tenant bases. Here's Exhibit A. We're just in a meeting at Invesco's new headquarters. Someone said, you want to look at the future of what an office looks like? Look at a hotel lobby. This is Invesco's new headquarters on the north end of the district near the Arts Center. It's pretty much straight state of the art. This is important, but it's also important what happens at the street level. Because if your street level looks like this, you're just not putting your best foot forward. And office owners control what happens at the ground floor of their building, and they control what happens outside their building. So this flight to quality is not just what's happening inside offices, it's what's happening at the ground floor and what's happening on their property surrounding their building. And I would also argue this experience also matters as to what's happening next door, down the street, 5 blocks away. Finally, here's some food for thought. Okay, I meant to delete this, but I didn't, so now I'm going to have to cover it. I heard this factoid last week, too. I'm like, wow. So, okay, just millennials born between the early 80s and the mid to late 90s, okay, just to give you something to grab onto. Like, how is that possible? So I started doing research, and damn, like, that really snuck up on me. Well, entirely false. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. Somebody wrote a report in like 2016, made that projection, and people have been picking it up throughout. I mean, you saw some of the names, Brookings, Forbes, CBRE, not accurate. Look at the Bureau of our Department of Labor. The millennials are in the blue bars, and the Gen Zs are in the red bars. 43% as of 2023. You know, not 75%, not insignificant, but it's just sort of a reminder to not believe every factoid that you see, even when it's presented by someone who does it in a really compelling manner and has a nice slide that says it. What does it mean? I don't exactly know. My sense is, you know, with a younger workforce, there are people that want a different deal with their employer, and they want a different relationship with their job and with their office and with their colleagues, and we're going to see how that washes out. I don't think you can say millennials want ... like a lot of people do in terms of generalizations. All right, didn't mean to cover that. Here's what I meant to cover. This just came out. This is our U.S. Surgeon General. It came out about 3 months ago. the devastating impact of the epidemic of loneliness and isolation and lack of connection. And this is not something that's just a result of the last 3 years. Again, pandemic and acceleration of existing trends. Let me just read to you an excerpt from this report. The physical health consequences of poor or insufficient connection include 29% increased risk of heart disease, 32% increased risk of stroke, 50% increased risk of developing dementia for older adults. Additionally, lacking social connection increases the risk of premature death by more than 60%. So that's pretty sobering. And I'm not sure exactly how you tied these outcomes to loneliness. I trust our Surgeon General, who deals with a lot of different things. But as mentioned, this is not just the last 3 years, this is a couple of decades. As a society, we move more. We change jobs more often. We're living with technology that has completely disrupted how we communicate with one another. It's totally changed how we communicate with friends and interact, how we talk to one another. And it's a change that's happened across age groups, with people spending less time with each other in person than they did 2 decades ago. And it particularly, obviously, impacts younger adults. 15 to 24, 70% less social interaction with their friends than we saw 2 decades ago. So, social media is no replacement. So what do you do about it? There's 6 pillars, and here is one of the pillars. You strengthen social infrastructure, and that's all about how we build our communities and our urban districts. The physical elements of a community and the programs and policy that are in place. So we know that what we're doing matters. So this is not just an amenity or a nice to have. This is healthcare right here. That's physical therapy. That's music healing. That's better living through smooth jazz. It's art and social studies. It's owl therapy. It's flexible and it's chill. And it's all ages. It's 4-legged support animals. It's group therapy. It's a prescription for longevity. Just please keep your feet on the pedals and be careful. It's a wellness check without the office visit. It's absolutely just what the doctor ordered. Life is short. We want this for you. We want this for us. Whoops, there we go. Good boy. So, let's peace out. I think the Surgeon General would approve of that. So those were images of the events that we've put on so far this year. We've put on about 60 events this year, which is by far the most we've ever put on. Ansley, raise your hand. That's Ansley Whipple, who is our... I don't know if you're calling Dr. Ansley. And we got 20 more to go, ish. So, yeah. This is good stuff, and it's good for you. We created an email address. You got ideas? We'd like to hear from you. You're invited to participate, curate, invite others, play, perform, construct, host, or just smile and applaud, but we need you. And so rather than saying we've got these defined things that you can help us with, set up or whatever, we're going to flip the script and have you tell us, what would you like to be involved in, if anything? Do you feel like you've got the time and interest to help in anything that we've talked about today? If so, pitch us an email, tell us what you're interested in, or what your questions are, you know, what your potential time availability could be, and we'll open up an opportunity to talk back and forth and see, you know, where we might be able to find a mutual fit. So, you know, we need your help, and we're inviting you to tell us what you're interested in and what you want to be involved in. I've talked for a while, but let me cover a couple things. Retail, street level retail in cities is hard. It was hard before the pandemic, and it's extra hard after the pandemic because you lost a cohort of daytime workers that were previously here. It's more expensive to find staff. It's more difficult to find staff. There's a host of challenges. You know, not to mention online sales if you're actually a retailer. But we also know that a successful street level retail experience is the lifeblood of any city. I mean, think about the cities where you like going, and I'd be surprised if those cities don't have a vibrant retail experience within them. And that's what we're trying to create here. Just in terms of numbers, you might be curious what happened during the pandemic. This sounds terrible, but it's a fact. Midtown lost 60 retailers over a 3-year period. 60. And I haven't gone back and looked at the previous 3 years just to see what the normal churn is, but we added 70. So a net gain of 10. And some of those, Philip, how many of those are associated with food halls, Politan Row, or the Collective? 15. 15 of those are associated with that. But they were both open before the pandemic, so that should be a wash. Anyway, net gain of 10, still not the kind of street level retail experience we'd like to see. We're about 19%, we'll call it 20% retail vacancy right now in Midtown. So our team has been meeting with retail owners, with retailers, with retail brokers, really trying to come to consensus on, given the fact that everything has changed, what does success look like? What are the challenges to getting us there? And then what are the opportunities to overcome those challenges? You know, what we often see in urban districts, particularly like Midtown, is you've got big towers, let's call it an office tower with street level retail. Too often the street level retail is either vacant for long periods of time, or it's leased to what I would call a sort of a net detractor in terms of the street level experience. And if you think about it, an office owner is very much concerned about what's going on the floors 2 through 30 and trying to keep it leased, and the revenue thrown off from the ground floor retail is sort of a rounding error. And if you have absentee, you know, owners especially, it's easy to see some of those property or those retail spaces just sit dormant for months or years, which is a walking billboard to not the kind of experience that we want to provide here. So we're trying to think outside the box. You know, what are the things we haven't tried before that we might try? The one, we could just wait for market corrections, and that's one strategy. We generally pride ourselves, one of our board members called our job a sustained impatience. So, you know, waiting on years for market corrections is not our idea of success. So we're looking at what can we possibly do? Is there a way to bring non-market capital in to sublease street level retail, to subdivide it, take some of the risk off the office building owners, and put some cool locals in? Because, I mean, generally cool retail is going to be cool locals. Lower price point, take a percentage rent, and see what happens. We'll see where we get. We haven't run all the numbers on that yet, but suffice it to say we're trying to think of new opportunities here, and we're not alone. I heard a lot from our compatriots across the country that they're all having trouble with ground floor retail. It's something that's always been a struggle in Midtown, and it's just, you know, every great retail street, I was in Chicago and DC the last 2 weeks, all the great retail streets have always been great retail streets. They're 100 plus years old, they've always had retailers there, they got 2 floors above. We're different. You know, we evolved at different times with lots of different owners, and so, you know, we've got some baked in challenges here. Capital projects. We build stuff. And after being stalled for several years, we passed legislation at the city that takes us out from under the city's thumb, particularly in procurement and some approvals. And so now we're off to the races. This is Juniper. We're definitely breaking some eggs on Juniper. Thanks for your patience. It's going to be disruptive. It's complicated. It'll be, well, if you're a bird, it'll look like that in 2024, towards the end of 2024. So a vast improvement. So we're waiting on that one. That's been a long time coming. And thankfully, the bid came back at something we could afford. We were pretty paranoid when we started bidding these projects out if they were going to be all too high. We got one that was super high. We had to cancel it. We went back, and generally the bids are where we can work with them. We've got signal intersection improvements, 24 intersections. That is already out. In fact, you can see us doing digging holes for pole bases right now. Not that exciting to show pictures of. Here's an exciting one. Art Walk. Under construction, substantially complete this year, including those beautiful green orbs. Ginny, what do we call those? Light spheres. Light spheres. Of course they are light spheres. Really cool. What you can't see in that picture is 5 sinkholes that delayed this project. The last one we finally chased down. MARTA paid for it, but yeah, a way more complicated project than it should have been. New 15th Street. This is one of the questions that we got from you all in advance. When is this project going to get done? Well, the good news is we're almost there. We've got bids. They're within budget. Our contractor, well, it's in blackout. I'm not sure what I can say other than under contract in the next 60 days. Right, Clady? Gotta be. By the way, Clady, raise your hand. Clady sustains more brain damage on all of our behalf than anybody in Midtown. We're going to have to start making her wear a hard hat at her desk. Just from beating her head. I mean, this stuff is not easy. It should be way easier than it is. It is not as easy as it should or could be. But this is going to be a wonderful project connecting a new 15th Street between West Peachtree and William Street. It'll involve some blasting. It'll involve, I don't know how many truckloads of rock. Lots. Anyway, it's going to be complicated, but it's going to be done. This is one, which is our 5th Street Complete Street, which is extended all the way into the Garden District. Interestingly, this project is also, we got bids in, and we're under contract soon. In the meantime, we got a new president of Georgia Tech who now wants to close 5th Street for a pedestrian plaza, which is a great idea. It's right in the middle of the project, but wouldn't that be cool? So they're running the numbers on this. They got to take it through the regents. They're raising some money. And this would be closed at least between West Peachtree and Spring on 5th Street, possibly as far back as Williams. We'll see. This is obviously right next to their new Tech Square 3, which is now under construction. So, good stuff happening. 10th Street Bridge, this is Spring Street. Shovel ready. We've got a deadline of November 9th. If we don't get it out for bid then we got to wait till the beginning of next year because of some vagaries with the schedule. But shovel ready next quarter. 10th Street Bridge, which is also the bridge and a lot of approaches down Peachtree Place to the bridge. Shovel ready. Money is raised for all these projects, or I wouldn't show them to you. Next quarter. Piedmont, this is Piedmont Avenue at 6th Street, kind of the companion project to Juniper. Tons of utility coordination underway right now. Utility coordination next year, early next year. What do you think, Dan?
First quarter.
First Q1, 24. You heard it here. So pricing is coming back good. Midtown is coming back good. But we still, I'll take inspiration wherever we can get it. Let's take a minute and go up north. I was in Montreal a couple weeks ago. I spent 3 days, almost 4 days on a bike. Man, you talk about transformative. They had a mayor, Valerie Plante. She started in 2017. 400 kilometers of bike lanes, either constructed or in process. That's, if you don't do the kilometer to mile calculation readily, that's 250 miles of bike lanes. In a city with an average snowfall of 82 inches a year. If they can do that, you would think that we ought to be off to the races here. So, on top of bike lanes, they close 10 streets to motor vehicles each summer. I had the pleasure of staying on one called Mont Royal. Just the healthiest retail you've ever seen, the happiest people you've ever seen. That's a sunny day on the left. That's a weekday, I think it was a Monday. And it was inspirational. We're not Montreal, but we'll take the inspiration where we can. By the way, our mayor was there. He met with Valerie Plante. Turns out they were born a couple weeks apart, so they're kindred spirits. So leadership matters. We'll hope a lot of those good vibes rub off. We're here to turn streets that were, that are, I think now dominated by fast-moving vehicles into a place where cars are a polite guest. North Avenue MARTA station, that is a very cool shipping container, compliments to Project for Public Spaces grant and a partnership with Norfolk Southern. There's an artist in residence that's going to paint it really cool mural, not the MARTA logo, but a really cool mural on the structure, and then that is now going to be community-based programming installed the end of this month. So that'll be a cool one for the MARTA Plaza on North Avenue MARTA station. Holiday lights, been installed starting in July, just to get them done. They'll be turned on about a month from now. Lauren, raise your hand. That's our holiday lights queen. If you have any holiday lights questions. 2 miles north to south. Jonathan and the green team keeping the lights going, which is more difficult than you think it would be. Raise your hand, Jonathan. You think you just flip them on, put them on a timer, and they'd all come on every night. Not. Speaking of lights, street light repairs, just an interesting factoid here. We had an average of 300 outages in 2020 and 2021. Went down to 150 based on us just dogging the city to fix these outages. We're now at 25 right now in Midtown, which is amazing progress. I haven't seen this in the 12 years I've been in Midtown Alliance. So dogged determination. We get a spreadsheet. You're welcome to it every month of every outage. We highlight the one where there are 2 or 3 in a row. And Georgia Power has taken over the city's streetlights, which is a sizable reason why we've got so many outages. But this also gets at the perception of safety. Public safety is not just crime stats, but ever since we were young, we didn't want to be in places that are dark. We just don't feel right, it doesn't feel safe. And so the more we can light up Midtown, the better off we're going to be. How many were Atlanta streets alive in September? Oh man, wasn't that great? That was just, it felt so good. The city now owns that event, and we're supporting it through staff and activations. So resounding success. We met with the city earlier today and debriefed on it. Next one is Sunday, October 22nd, a week from this Sunday. I understand there's some question that the November one might move, but right now it's set for the 12th of November. So man, if you didn't experience it, that was amazing. Peachtree Street Visioning, 1 week from today. This is a project that is a planning project, but it's on a pretty short timeline. We're looking at Peachtree Street from the south end of Midtown all the way through Midtown to the north end of Midtown where the Amtrak station is and the Peachtree Bridge is with the big archways. We're reimagining Peachtree Street. What if you did something different with one of those 4 lanes? This is just a concept rendering. This is not don't want you to think this is all baked in and we know what we're going to do and this is just a public meeting to check the box. This is one idea. This is immediately north of the Fox Theater where they got a really tiny sidewalk and they welcome almost 700,000 patrons a year. Give them a little more sidewalk width on both ends of the street. There's one thing you could do with a lane. You could close it and turn it into a bike lane. You could make one northbound, one southbound, turn a center turn lane. There's lots of things you could do. We'd like to hear from you what you think we should do. So there's a meeting, 5 to 7. It's going to be at the Courtyard Element, which is that new hotel immediately south of the Fox Theater. In fact, you could almost see it in that rendering in the distance there. So 5 to 7, Dan Horrigan, this right here, is leading the charge on that. We've got some really excellent consultants, so I'm really excited to get to work with them. So that's kicking off. Biketober, your ticket to two-wheeled adventure. We're only a third of the way through Biketober. This is really cool. If you bike or don't bike, or want to bike, hit them up. There's organized bike rides. It's a great way to get connected with other bikers in Midtown. There's cool events and there's prizes, and it's got another 20 days to run. So check it out. Next Midtown Movie Night is a week from Friday. E.T. Call Home. And they've been really interesting. I've been surprised at the number of people who come out and how far away they come to experience an outdoor movie. Free popcorn, bring whatever you want to eat or drink, and come early for a good scrap of Astromount. So there you have it. We're here to create an exceptional urban experience. We're here to create a sensational public realm. It's a lot of big things, it's a lot of small things, it's things that are instant gratification, and it's things that take years or decades to work out. But we need you. No matter what your role is or status in Midtown, as a resident or as a worker or as an interested person or as a visitor or as a property owner or employer, there's something you can do to help, because this is going to be an exponential effort. And after all, it's medicine, right?